Welcome to Ahead of the Game, a podcast brought to you by the Digital Marketing Institute. I'm your host, Will Francis, and today I'll be talking to Dikshant Dave about Agentic AI agents that can autonomously go off and perform multi-step tasks and processes for you. It's a huge trending topic in the world of AI, so it's something that we all need to be on top of. And that's why we'll be chatting all about that with Dikshant, who is CEO of Zigment, a conversational sales platform based in India that uses AI to automate sales conversions. Dikshant, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you.
Thank you, Will. Thanks for having me. Yeah, pleasure being here.
Let's just start with a simple explanation of agentic AI. What does that mean right now, do you think?
Okay, great question. There is a lot of definitions flowing around, what agentic AI is. And of course, nothing is absolutely perfect. So my version, or the way I see, and we've kind of localized that understanding here, is that when LLM started, we kind of were looking at generative aspect of LLM, which basically is generating your blog posts, your copies, and kind of creating content, images, etc.
So by LLM, you mean things like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude.
Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. So LLMs are like all these large language models. And ChatGPT was the use case that we kind of started using, which was primarily to kind of generate content. And we called it generative AI. Agentic AI is basically kind of using the same large language models, basically the understanding the world, like knowledge about things and how things function, using that aspect of LLMs to actually perform tasks. Now, and then when we say like tasks, it is basically putting LLMs to kind of make decisions and like series of decisions and perform an activity or achieve a goal. You know, so that's how I describe, or we describe, agentic AI.
It's a good explanation because it reminds us that these agents, their understanding is as an LLM. So it's all very language based. And that's why when you see them thinking aloud, they work through everything using language. And even when they're using a screen, when they're using a computer or something like that, they still have to sort of describe to themselves what they see on screen so they can use language to work out what to do next. So that can be quite inefficient. They currently are quite slow, but the advances are quite quick in this space. So how did you get into agentic AI?
So I've been a serial entrepreneur. I had a startup kind of, before when COVID hit, we decided to kind of, take a pause, and I was on a sabbatical for longish period. It was happened to be when the whole OpenAI GPT kind of came on fore, and being from the tech background, kind of exploring, it was just a personal interest, like what it was, and what are things that are possibility now, in possible realms of possibility. So started experimenting, and I would say that just the series of experiments kind of got me into the rabbit hole of what this is, and then what are the possibilities. So one of the things that we kind of I did was, my previous startup, we had a business of selling supplements. So the process was that somebody would kind of come onto the website and kind of take a test, and then the engine would recommend a supplement.
So did that use AI?
It did not use AI.
No,
It
it's like
had
a
a series of
basic set of rules or something.
set rules, etc. But the problem statement back then was that when we were not having a lot of conversions in our sales, and when I say conversions, a lot of people were taking tests. We solved a lot of problems in online kind of marketing, uh, space, but we still saw that the conversions weren't happening. And out of frustration as a founder, I would kind of reach out to these customers who had put their stuff in the cart or checkout, like, and even checked out, but not kind of, purchased. And what I realized was that to people who I reached out to, like almost like 8 out of 10, they would convert. And but what the kind of that gave me rise that, okay, it requires a personalized, engagement or personalized conviction. We tried baking that into the product, but just didn't work. It required, like, there were cases were so many that it just kind of eluded us from doing that. So fast forward into the 2023, this problem had stayed in my mind, and kind of it surfaced up like when we saw the ability that, okay, now we have an opportunity to create a one-on-one engagement just like I would, and can I create my own replica of of how I would deal with kind of customers concerns and questions, etc. And then just that's what kind of began the journey for us in Zigment.
That's something I want to linger on, this idea that you were doing a great job of some quite good personalization, but it wasn't sealing the deal. It wasn't driving the sale. It was only when you personally got in touch, right? And why do you think that was? I mean, you'd given me the solution with the product. Why were these people not buying it?
That was our question as well, and then
Like,
that
what
kind
did
of
you add when you actually got in touch with them personally?
yeah. There was just number of concerns or queries that they would kind of would want to kind of be addressed. Say for example, somebody would say that, oh, you know what, I 5 years ago I met with an accident, so I don't know if this product is right for me. Or somebody said like, are you by any chance procuring your raw materials from China? So the number of questions were just so varied and so diverse that it would be impossible to bake that into the product experience on website. But one on one, you could just easily answer those questions and kind of give a personal touch that, okay, this is my concern, this is what you would do. And of course, I would bake in not just as a support, but it would also persuasion of some sort that leading them to kind of understand their own problem better. Uh, so yeah, so that I guess that was the reason we kind of converted more with personal touch.
It's interesting that, isn't it? Because part now I'm wanting in my head to try and separate. I wonder how much of that was the information you gave and the answers that you gave, and
Mhm.
how much of it was that a real person got in touch. So, do you think it's realistic that an AI could match your conversion rate as a closer of those sales?
Eventually, yes, and then kind of being at that same very problem that can AI kind of replace me when for this job, not in entirety but for this job. Our conviction just kind of grew as we kind of kept building, and I would say it is not there yet in terms of like 100%, but I feel that it is now at a stage where you feel that okay, this is business ready, like you can deploy this and put it to work, and then see the outcomes.
Interesting. And tell me, how's that gone? What sort of how well is it doing? Does it ever give any sort of bad answers or false answers? I mean, is it reliable?
Yeah, I guess for everyone who's kind of used ChatGPT, I think is aware that hallucination is such a real, a thing, right? And when we started, these were the problems that we kind of encountered. And between kind of as a hobby project and kind of, taking this up as a serious business or a kind of a startup venture, this point was that, okay, this is not straightforward. It isn't a straightforward problem that you can predictably guarantee the outcome from an entity which is by nature not kind of can be a wavered in its direction.
Yeah, it's autonomous, right? It's just doing
Yeah,
its
it's
thing.
autonomous, exactly. And then kind of the biases could be led in with data, with kind of you can kind of lead it in a direction. So that became one of the challenges or the problems that we felt as a company large enough and serious enough to solve. And we have kind of made significant progress, to that extent. We put a benchmark that if human support centers and desks have a 90% or 91% uh, accuracy or compliance, average right now, this got to be kind of at least matching that or better. For the deployments we've done now, we are way beyond that. We are close to 94, 95% in that accuracy range, and practically zero hallucinations in our deployment. So yeah, we've kind of achieved that, and I think you know not unsurmountable problems as such.
So, when these agents have the conversation with the customer, how important do you think it is to be transparent about that? Or is it actually better that the agent takes on a human persona and pretends to be a human agent?
Great question, and technically we've kind of debated internally in terms of how that should be. In most cases, it is governed by the policies that are kind of laid by the organization, where some organizations come up front that we want to put the disclosure in very first message or the opening message itself. And certain businesses are saying that we don't want to hide it, that it's not AI, but we don't need to kind of disclose it. So if user customer asks about it, then you kind of answer it. So we've kind of played on both sides of the spectrum and realize that in a lot of use cases or a lot of kind of spaces, humans are far more comfortable engaging with knowing that it's AI, it's not a human. To give you an example here is we are working with one fertility chain of hospitals, and there we have seen that there is, for people to come out and kind of, be open about the issues and concerns, we've seen kind of there is a far more acceptance of having an AI, just intelligent and smart and kind of, empathic, empathetic to an extent, AI, but where you don't have to worry about how are you going to be judged or kind of, recorded or kind of even, known. So yeah, we've seen kind of, both sides of using whether AI or not.
That's interesting. That yes, and we hear a lot about people using ChatGPT as like a therapist or a counselor,
That's right.
and a lot of these people are people who wouldn't actually be comfortable with a human therapist or counselor. And what they love about AI is that lack of judgment, that completely sort of safe space that you can say anything to, and it's completely private. I think a lot of people are thriving on that at the moment. It's interesting, isn't it?
Exactly. The other day, my daughter kind of came and asked me that, is there any way I can kind of lock my chat GPT because I'm asking a lot of personal questions, so things like these, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, and they do have a temporary chat feature in ChatGPT now in the top
Correct,
right. So it's a
correct,
bit
yeah.
like an incognito window, if you like, kind of thing. But yeah, I think our ChatGPT history is starting to say more than any other digital footprint. It's really interesting.
Exactly.
So you're at the forefront of AI in sales and marketing. What do you think are the current big shifts happening in marketing and sales because of AI?
Yeah. Uh, so yeah, we kind of more focus on marketing. So I'll kind of, focus on marketing aspect of it. Of course, sales kind of, follows and becomes a part. But the most fundamental shift or trend that we are seeing is we are moving from the world which was clickstream and kind of a structured data based world to now more conversational and unstructured data led. With that, what I mean is that in the previous era of marketers needed all they had or like had to kind of worry about what are my page views, what are my clicks, how many add to cards, and draw a lot of in-depth analysis from these primary touch points with the customer. But these were very finite touch points and you could kind of structure them. Even the systems have been based on like understanding that these are very structured data that's going to come into the system. You have page views, you have clicks, etc. Now, the biggest shift that we see now happening, and kind of it's happening now pretty rapidly, is as we see that more and more systems or software interfaces are starting to kind of have a prompt, interface or a prompt kind of input area. A lot of softwares are kind of adding, like Google has all the products have a Gemini interface. Similarly, like most of the systems are kind of starting to have a conversational, interface, which basically means that more and more data is going to be unstructured. So your kind of every signal that you have is going to be stored in unstructured data. So what are kind of as a marketer, what do you do? Because your systems have been designed for the structured world. Even though we had a lot of unstructured data, but all the system and decision making was primarily based on this structured information. That if somebody has kind of added to their product to the cart, then kind of send an email after 2 hours, reminding them about the add to cart and kind of follow it up like probably a next day or like 2 days after. But now with conversational data, you have a way more kind of like much stronger signals about intent, for example, or urgency, where somebody's asking, let's say, hey, when is this product going to be delivered before you know Thanksgiving, for example. Now that shows you urgency, that shows you intent, versus in the older world this entire data would be flattened to kind of say that okay, this person made a click in some page on your website. So I think being ready with kind of this new world and the new dynamic is kind of the shift that we are going to see very soon.
It's funny that, isn't it? Because the flip side of that is that on our side as the marketers, AI gives us the opportunity to work with really unstructured data. That's what I love about it. You know,
Right.
if I want to do an audit of someone's LinkedIn page, I don't need a tool. I just literally just copy the entire page with all the bits of text that don't matter, like, comment, share, all that. Just dump it in Chat GPT. Or if I want to know what people think about something on Reddit, I just copy a whole thread, dump it into Chat GPT. And we definitely, so it's not a problem, is it, having this unstructured data, because we've got the wherewithal to actually work with it now and find patterns in it with an LLM.
Correct. I think you said it right. Like, so because of LLM now, we have ability to process this unstructured information. Now, when you magnify this problem for large enterprises, who are getting probably like 100, inbound requests a minute or an hour, uh, how do you kind of do it systematically? And of course, even the workflows or the journey itself is pretty involved. That if this happens, like at this stage, the data will go to this particular CRM, and from there we are going to kind of initiate another nudge, and if there that response comes in, then this kind of certain other system needs to be updated, etc. Now, how do you start thinking about that? Okay, like the data is going to be in conversations. So the example that you gave is a piece of unstructured data, but it's a static information where you're saying, okay, I have this information or a LinkedIn page which I need kind of to analyze and study and then make a decision. But when we are talking about real time decision making, where the let's say a conversation is happening with AI agent, where you are saying certain things, and basis that the AI agent is kind of making real-time decisions in the back end. So you said that I'm slightly in a rush to kind of get this. There is AI agent which is going to perform a certain thing, like, okay, I need to accelerate this particular thing. Maybe I'm sending you a brochure because of that, and based on sentiment, based on mood of what's happening, to take those actions in real time is where kind of a lot of, I would say, we are going to go in that direction.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because it's had a similar impact on automation. So, the kind of marketing automation that we do with platforms like Zapier, Make, etc. Your data had to be very structured, sort of the stuff you're talking about, where someone would make a purchase, the data had to be structured properly, like name, address, email address, and that could be passed into a CRM system. But if anything was slightly out of whack, the thing broke, because it had to be very, very structured, rigid data being passed very specifically. And then 2 years ago, ChatGPT, the API is available to anyone to plug into Zapier and Make and any automation platform. And now you can have messy bits in your automation, and ChatGPT will just sort of work it out and put the right things in the right places and maybe even create content, generate content during that flow. So it's definitely opened up a lot. But what I see, what I want to ask you about is there's a lot of confusion about, sometimes people say, oh, I've built an agent, and you'll look at it and go, that's just an automation. I see that a lot. There's a lot of hype, obviously, in social media. Steal this AI agent to do all your work for you. When you look at it, it is just an automation. What's the difference in your head between an automation and an agent?
Yeah. I would say agent is an evolution of automation that we knew as. And when we say automation, automation is kind of a overarching, umbrella, concept. Like, how you would kind of, put certain things in action, in sequence or kind of in certain order. So far, what we have seen is RPAs, which is like, those robotic process automations. Zapier is one example where if this, then kind of do that, and then kind of, like connect different channels, different platforms, uh, and kind of pass on the end result to a certain system, which will again kind of, perform some processing on that information. So the concept or the objective remains same with agents. I would say it's a step jump, and why, I'll explain. In the previous era of automations, which you kind of, the example that you gave about Zapier, is we had a way of kind of a very deterministic flow, that okay, the information will pass through a certain flow that you have created, or maybe there is like a 5 possible paths which you have kind of created as a marketer, and the information has an option or kind of opportunity to flow only from these paths to kind of reach an end result. What that means is that you as a marketer have taken kind of your understanding of how the systems work and created this flow. So obviously kind of a lot of onus on how good you are or how well you have thought your process to be. In agent, you're actually kind of now we are thinking that, okay, this is my input, this is my end objective, these are the intermediate checkpoints probably, but that's all there is. And there could be like hundreds or even thousand possible paths that agent might take, and they are not defined by you, they are not designed by you. You are kind of relying on LLM's ability of how things are done in the world and it to figure out the best possible way to kind of get to the end objective. So that's why I feel that while we're performing a similar task, but it is a step jump in the sense that now it is way more smarter, and thereby the things that you can do and things that are possible are way more than what we could achieve with standard automation.
True, isn't it, that the LLM becomes the specialist and works out the process and can flex that process, can adapt and deal with uncertainties and things like that, right? And that's quite useful, isn't it? So tell us then what you implement at Zigment, what kind of clients and what exactly you implementing for them with these agents.
Sure. So Zigment, we call ourselves Agentic Customer Journey Automation Platform. So what that means is that we, as a company, we are focused on the automations which are around the customer interaction, the customer engagement. So, in a typical organization, you could have a lot of internal processes which also may be automated, which could be automated. Us as a company, we focused on, just kind of focusing on the customer engagement, pieces of customer engagement. Now, the kind of businesses or, that we are working with are mainly around healthcare, finance, real estate, automotive. The common theme being that the any kind of marketing journey or a sales funnel of these companies are long. It's a long journey. It is not an instant purchase. It's not an e-commerce primarily, where decision making might take weeks or even months. And what it requires is to kind of a business to create a like lot of nurturing workflows and kind of spec out like what's going to happen within that time. So we kind of specialize on in that mold and help.
Why is it companies with a very long buying cycle? Is that because there needs to be those sort of long-term conversations, long-term check-ins or touch points?
Yeah, I mean, it has to do with that. Yes, that it requires multiple workflows. It's not a single workflow. So the problems of your AI kind of deploying AI to perform a task, they become acute and they can become kind of slightly magnified when you have, let's say, 7 steps or 7 different workflows that are going to happen in your marketing funnel. Stitching them all together in a very coherent way and ensuring that the context is not lost from one flow to the other. And I'll give you an example. Say for you've kind of sent a message to a user on third day, or like after that person kind of initiated the engagement, and you kind of talked about, let's say, offering a discount. The number fourth workflow, or like our message that kind of goes out from your a separate workflow from your dealership, cannot ignore or cannot kind of forget the context that was set in. And then what basically that kind of happens in a lot of times in current marketing journeys is that these different workflows do not have context carried on from different systems. You could get a email from the
Yeah,
same company
yeah,
that offering you something, but you are already in dispute with their support team about certain things and you're not happy, and you to get a marketing message like which kind of feels like a point of annoyance.
yeah.
So
That's
we
just
kind of
bad
help these
CRM,
companies.
isn't it? But it happens, and it's bigger organizations are very prone to that. So you're carrying on that context, and there's that deepening personalization. So I get that why that's useful over a long buying journey. Whereas e-commerce, you just win the click and then you kind of win the sale, and it's all a bit too short term for that to be so relevant, perhaps.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly what it is.
Interesting, very interesting. And so, and is it all bigger enterprises because of the volume of
Correct.
customers?
So I think we kind of work with growth stage, so mid market to kind of a enterprise scale,
Yeah,
primarily because what you mentioned, like the you have a scale where this problem becomes significant. If you're getting like very few inbound leads, there is no need for AI. You could do it manually.
yeah, true. Do you use it for Zigment? Do you use it yourself?
We do, yes, we do. We have a our own agent on website, and it takes you through that journey as well.
And what is agentic about it? Is it that what kind of decisions does it make behind the scenes? What kind of things might it sort of connect with beyond just telling me stuff? And does it connect with CRM and things like that?
Yes. Yeah, so it connects with our CRM. It has capability of pulling the available, sales team members' calendar and
Yeah,
figuring out which kind of, slots are available for appointment, sales call or demo call. And so it has that intelligence, kind of it sets up and gets you a call, right away on the same flow.
sounds great. Sounds like we all need that. That's brilliant. Just out of interest, how hands-on and practical are you with AI in marketing personally?
I would say a power user of AI right now. So right from personally a lot of generative, aspects of LLM that I use for creating my own snippets of stuff that I have to send it to people, etc. I also use that extensively for just brainstorming, a certain idea and then kind of, debating over a certain thing. So a lot of that as well.
Yeah. And what bits of marketing do you think we should keep AI away from, if any? Where do we need the human? Where do we need to keep it human?
Great question. And this is my personal opinion. In cases where there is no context established and it's a absolutely cold email or cold message that goes out, you know, I request to kind of businesses and companies that we work with is that please keep it human. Like, please don't kind of automate that part because it's absolutely doesn't seem great to kind of open a channel with somebody on a front that I don't even respect you that much that I have cared to kind of understand your profile and need, and I'm just automating my way to making friends. So I feel that AI should come, and that's something that's why we focus more on inbound, primarily, is because in inbound the context is set where the user or your potential customer would have seen your ad or has some understanding of the business and has a certain kind of ask, or has shown some interest. And then kind of, you kind of take them through that journey, but not otherwise.
That's a good point, that. Yeah. And on the other side of it, which jobs do you think in the world of marketing are s- most likely to be replaced by AI, if any?
We are seeing a lot of, junior, I would say like a sales qualification, like, that those roles kind of going away pretty fast. Same thing with support, like sales support or even kind of, operational support roles are kind of being taken away pretty fast. You have this lead generation, and then there is like a moment the leads come into your CRM, you have your junior resources whose job was to kind of not necessarily sell, but just ask questions and figure out if the user is interested in buying or not, and then qualify them whether they qualify for your sale. And if they do, then kind of have your senior salesperson or your star kind of a sale closer kind of come into the system and kind of close the deal. We see that the middle band of these people kind of who were just doing this logistics or kind of setting up the operational role of sales are no longer needed, primarily because those things can be accomplished with AI quite a bit. So while
True,
not
true.
100% reduction, but I would say significant, like 90%, at least.
True. Yeah, I don't think anything will see that 100% reduction, but I think you're right. And what would you say to someone who was early in their marketing career, but they really wanted to stay in marketing, but they wanted to be safe, to keep their job safe? What kind of things would you tell them to do and lean into?
I feel that, as AI is taking up a lot of mundane routine tasks that were there for sure. Even the basic decision making, etc., has been taken, and I think that those are in fact, if they are not gone today, they're surely going tomorrow. What I would suggest, and what I kind of also have been telling to people I know, is that focus on kind of being better, way better than AI. I mean, there is still kind of realms where we are the ones who are deciding how to use AI. AI is not sentient yet, so we are going to kind of we can use it or we can command it to kind of do what we have to do. So figure out what are those questions, what are those kind of things, how do you kind of become a master? Because slave, if it is there, you just have to kind of now own that mastery on certain things and kind of push yourselves to go up on that level of abstraction of thought process and everything, and start using that as a mode. And I feel that in the world where a lot of things kind of are being taken away by AI, the spaces where humans would still kind of be required, those humans or those places are going to be becoming supremely kind of valuable, and very, very kind of even more valuable than earlier. For example, a lot of graphics kind of can be done now with AI, but there are certain high level stuff where it's very hard for AI to kind of beat a good human kind of a graphic artist. Now, because now there is so much of content that's going to come out, which is going to be like mediocre or
Yeah.
AI based, those small, like bunch of people who are producing great content, they are going to get like a, skyrocket in their kind of, position, because that's rare. That's going to be like rare,
Mm,
more and
yeah.
more rare. So there is merit in kind of, scaling up and kind of being there.
True. It's like being. Again, it's about being better, isn't it? It's about, if you're going to be a designer, you've got to focus on being a significantly better designer than AI.
That's right.
And you're right about that. I often think of mass-produced goods, right? Just because things could be mass-produced from around about 60, 70 years ago, it didn't stop people wanting handmade, handcrafted things, and they were happy to pay more for them.
That's right.
Kind of the same thing, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah. Great analogy.
And so, I'm interested, like when these companies come to you. I mean, I'm sure you're doing outbound sales to these companies, but anyway, when you talk to your potential clients, what problem do they say that they've got normally? What kind of problems do they typically come to you with?
So number one problem that we see, and now across, I would say now we have 30 plus customers across the world. The number one problem that we've seen is something that you alluded to, that the marketing, your systems, you kind of join them with, Zapier, and it kind of needs to be very precise and structured, and like, if it is not, it kind of starts breaking. We call it like a joining or kind of making your marketing stack with a duct tape, like patching it with the duct tape. And I'm surprised, and like you would be surprised to know that like even the large enterprises, the marketing stacks have been like just been on like duct tape together with new system coming in, and you duct tape it with something, and then either it's a manual, like a human starts kind of, pushing from here to here, like data, plugging reports, or there is Zapier or some alternative that kind of, gets in. They all try and cover the fundamental issue, which is like the system is broken. Like system is not like, they are not meant to kind of work together in some way, or they're not designed to kind of, interoperate. So your data is in silos. You somehow kind of, patch the action mechanism or like automation together. But as the companies grow and kind of start becoming larger, you need to know what's happening. You need to understand, like, okay, what's my customer, typical customer kind of, going through. Great, we kind of converted, 5 customers out of 100 leads, last month. But we want to know, like, okay, what happened? Like, why these 5? Like, what are the journeys looking like? And what are the journeys of other 95 who did not convert? Like, what did they look like? You have some basic analysis on stuff that, oh, like we are seeing the big drop at like this particular stage, but so that what, you just don't know why, like, and why you kind of put some analysis and theories around it. uh, but for our customers who are kind of seeing this, or like slightly ahead or evolved, and they would have played around with AI, and they have some understanding that this problem should be solvable. Like now the problem of like, can I have a coherent way of, stitching my workflows together, where I can then kind of, start asking questions that I've been trying to ask and kind of not getting answers for in my marketing stack. So that's number one problem that we've seen, that most marketing companies have kind of, most companies have said their marketing stack kind of is kind of on a shaky ground, like it's kind of patched
Yeah.
together. Best of the systems, like most expensive ones, but they still kind of somehow patched together.
It's interesting that. And, just thinking about the sort of workforce thing, is anyone, or a lot of these companies switched on to the opportunity to downsize the workforce? Or is that's not really what they're trying to do necessarily with AI?
We thought initially that that would be the objective, and we kind of were also playing around with that narrative. But we were
Yeah.
surprised to see that most progressive of the companies that we are working with or we are going to work with, they all are thinking that we can now do a lot more, with the existing, workforce than kind of downsizing. And I've been pleasantly surprised that everybody's thinking not, AI not as a reductive force, but like a force multiplier. So like, okay, with my 10 member team, which I was finding it so hard to scale, like the support is hard to kind of, build. But now with this, we can kind of actually do that scaling without worrying about like how are we going to operationally manage, that scale. So and that's why kind of, we like working with growth companies and kind of, slightly who are evolved to a point where they have a marketing stack, they have these problems, and then they want to grow from that.
Yes, it's interesting that it's related to this thing that got talked about in the AI space recently, Javan's paradox, which is this idea that what we've found is that when you get these like productivity boosts, like machines in the Industrial Revolution, computers in the mid 20th century, etc., the concern is always that that will replace people. But yes, what companies almost always realize is that this isn't an opportunity to get rid of people. This is an opportunity to do far more, like you say, a multiplier with the people we've got. And so more work actually just gets done because I think wherever you are in history, including now, people think how could there be more work to do? There's so much work taking place. How could a company? But actually, when you think about it, we all could be doing more and we all could be reaching more customers in more personalized ways, more regularly, and growing the business quicker. So that is reassuring to hear, certainly. And I also think that you worry if your sales pitch was we can help you get rid of people. I can imagine that not being great from a reputational point of view, and just from a wider PR perspective, because there have been some tech companies that have used that as a selling point and have come under some significant fire. So, yeah.
Yeah. And also, so to add to that point, yeah, I mean, reduction in workforce, like who do you even sell that pitch to? Because let's say if a marketing like, head or a director who's going to make that decision or buying decision is like, it's not a great feeling to kind of have that, okay, I'm a marketing director to now two-member team versus the 20 that I had, so you start kind of thinking that your own position is that, is threatened.
Yeah. Yeah, true. I want to ask you, what handful of tips would you have for our listeners wanting to get started with agentic AI in their workflows?
Okay. Yeah, I think I have many, and then kind of learned the hard way, while implementing it for our customers. So I kind of believe in like small is big here. So rather than kind of chasing a very large goal, overarching goal, start small, like a smart, very straightforward workflow of certain things. To give you an example, with a lot of our customers, we kind of pick a use case in their funnel where which is not in focus, like so like okay, like right now your Instagram handle is kind of unmanned, like it is nobody's kind of handling it. Can we put an AI agent? Because the load, cognitive load is less, and also the concern or like the worry is kind of far lesser. So we say start small and let's how it builds. And then we've literally seen everything growing organically, even the confidence for the marketers to kind of see, okay, yeah, this has worked here. Let's kind of add one more channel. Let's add one more kind of a flow. So yeah, I would say that start small, but do start. Identify a kind of a thing that you do repetitively, and figure out like what can you do to kind of replace that with AI.
Nice. I think that's a very good idea, just to get your hands on the tools and maybe use something like Make or Zapier, right? Would that be a good start?
Yeah, and there are many. I mean, there is Lindy.ai. There is, Zapier has some own AI version, but again, those are like AI features slapped on the existing, stuff. Very soon we will have like a workbench, for one to come and try, out.
Great.
So do look out for at Zigment that we will be coming up with that platform very soon.
Right. So you're planning to launch an agent builder,
Yeah,
essentially.
focusing on marketing,
Cool.
so that's in works, pretty close to kind of, launching where you could kind of figure out like these smaller use cases, which, like again, could be handled but with your own, expertise. Of course, for larger sets with a lot of integrations, we would kind of, require to kind of get in and kind of figure that out. But for most, lot of use cases, we could use that.
Nice. Oh, well, look out for that. I'll definitely be playing with that. Thanks. Okay, cool. Well, look, thanks so much for your time. I've learnt loads. I really enjoyed talking to you about that, Dikshant. That was really, really interesting. Just tell our listeners where they can find and connect with you online.
Yeah. So my name is Dikshant, Dikhant, Dave, Dave. Just look up on LinkedIn. There are not many with my name, so you should surely find me there. Or just visit our website. It's called Zigment, Zigment, and then kind of you'll have my profile there.
We will check that out and look forward to
Yep.
seeing that workbench to try building some agents with as well. Right. Well, thanks again. Hope to chat to you again soon.
Thank you, Will.